XRP, backed by gold and shooting to $35,000 a coin. It sounds like a crypto fever dream, right? Well, this rumor turned into something so crazy that even a former Ripple director had to step on in. And you know that I had to investigate what on earth is happening. So, picture this. I'm just sipping on my morning coffee, scrolling through our community Discord, when someone shares a screenshot that nearly makes me do a spit take. Here's a side note. If you haven't already joined our free educational Discord yet, there is a link in the description below. It's a great place to catch wind of all this kind of stuff really early. Anyway, the screenshot was a tweet from a guy named Baron Dominus, a notable XRP community figure on X, and he's actually making a jaw-dropping claim that XRP will be gold-backed and reach $2,953 by Q1 of 2026. Not only that, he also suggested that it could even soar to $10,000 to $35,000 per coin as part of some imminent financial shift. Now I know, it sounds absolutely bonkers. It's not the first time we've seen these wild claims. I mean, who remembers August 29th, 2020, right? So at first I thought this is just a parody of some kind of satire, but no, this was a serious post apparently, and it was blowing up. People were losing their collective minds in the replies. Many were calling the idea just an insane concept, and I can't blame them, right? It's not the first time we've seen this kind of BS circulating on social media, right? XRP is around $2.80 today, so thinking it could nearly hit kind of $3,000 in barely a kind of couple of months, that's over 1,000x increase. And $35,000 per coin? Yeah, if you do the math, that would put XRP's total market value in the quadrillions of dollars, right? Multiplied times more than kind of, I guess, multiple times more than any GDP of the entire world. So yes, I actually paused to just do the math because, you know, that's the nerd in me was kind of a bit curious. Anyway, in other words, it's beyond absurd and it's just crazy that some people even float these ideas. One commentator basically said that the guy must be bad at math, and I had to chuckle because, well, yeah. But here is where things get even more interesting, right? In amidst all of the hype and skepticism, a wild kind of Matt Hamilton appears. Okay, maybe not wild. He's actually a pretty well level-headed kind of guy. If you don't know Matt, he's a former director at Ripple. This is the company behind XRP and one of the respected developers in the crypto space. So out of nowhere, Hamilton jumps into the conversation with a dose of reality, right? His response, and I quote, was simply, "You cannot back XRP with gold. Sorry." So, mic drop. You can't back XRP with gold. This isn't the first time that someone's actually had to come out and prove this and debunk this whole idea, but that one line from a former Ripple insider is kind of like hitting an ice-cold shower on a whole lot of heated imaginations, right? Now, it was so blunt and straightforward that it kind of immediately cut through all of the noise. And I'll be honest, I let out a little thank you when I read that because somebody, well, needed to say it again. Now, Matt's comment might actually sound dismissive, but it's 100% on point, right? Let's unpack the why. Right? Why can't you back XRP with gold? Why was he so confident in shutting all of this down? And to answer that, we need to think about what gold-backed actually means. Now, traditionally, if something like a currency is gold-backed, it means that you can redeem it for a certain amount of gold. That requires a mechanism where the supply of that currency can expand or contract based on the gold reserves. And here is the kicker. XRP's supply is fixed, right? There will only ever be 100 billion XRP tokens, and you cannot just print more of them out of thin air, right? They're not like dollars at a central bank that can print willy-nilly, right? Crypto people have this kind of joke about the money printer going brrr, right? At least when, talking about central banks flooding the economy with new money. Well, guess what? XRP cannot go brrr, right? Hamilton literally pointed this out in the thread, right? You cannot suddenly create new XRP to match an influx of gold, and you cannot destroy massive amounts of XRP if you need to reduce the supply either. There is no elasticity in the supply. There's no built-in mechanism to adjust the supply in response to changes in gold reserves or redemptions. I mean, imagine trying to peg XRP to gold. Right, let's do a fun thought experiment for all you people out there. Let's say 1 XRP is meant to equal 1 gram of gold, right? There are 100 billion XRP, so you would need 100 billion grams of gold to back it up. That's 100 million kilograms, or about 100,000 metric tons of gold. Now, for context, that's roughly half of all of the gold ever mined in human history. It's totally unrealistic. And even if some kind of, I guess, quadrillionaire consortium of, or maybe even a government somehow managed to hoard that much gold, which they won't, by the way, what actually happens next? Well, if the price of gold changes or if people start redeeming XRP for gold, well, you would need to adjust the supply of XRP or the backing ratio. But you can't just adjust the XRP supply. It's locked. So the whole idea falls apart right there. But let's also flip it around. Let's suppose somehow this backing did happen. What price would XRP be if it's truly backed by gold? Well, if each XRP represented just 1 gram of gold, each coin's value would basically track that gram of gold, which today is like $60, not $35,000. Even if you kind of said 1 XRP equals 1 troy ounce of gold, i.e. 31 grams, well, then 1 XRP would be worth whatever an ounce of gold is worth. Right now, an ounce of gold is kind of in the kind of mid 4 figures. So in fact, recently gold has been pretty high. I mean, I saw a stat that an ounce of gold was roughly $3,818 at one point in 2025. But still, $3,800 is a far cry away from $10,000, let alone $35,000. Now, the only way that XRP would ever kind of hit that $35,000 area because of a gold backing is if gold itself somehow skyrocketed to $35,000 an ounce, which would imply an almost, apocalyptic kind of economic scenario that, trust me, we probably won't be seeing anytime soon. And even then, XRP wouldn't be special. Every asset tied to gold would be worth exactly that much. The point is that backing something with gold generally anchors its value to the value of gold. It doesn't magically multiply the asset's price beyond what the gold is actually worth. And that is exactly what Matt Hamilton was getting at. XRP's value doesn't need to come from gold. It's trying to tie it to, or at least trying to tie it to gold isn't just infeasible, it's actually kind of pointless, right? He was giving the community a bit of a reality check. He said, hey guys, this isn't how any of this actually works. XRP derives its value from other things, like people using it for payments, banks potentially adopting it, the utility of the XRP ledger for projects, and yes, speculation by all of us traders. So throwing gold into the mix won't send it to the moon. If anything, it would actually turn XRP into a more stable, gold-pegged token and likely just sap away a lot of the speculative excitement. So by now, I'm like nodding along with Matt, his take and his thinking, because, okay, case is closed. This gold idea is just complete nonsense. But one part of me was a little bit still curious here. Where did this theory even come from? All the way back to 2020 when I first really went into some of these rabbit holes with people speculating this very specific date is going to be the day that gold is going to be backing XRP. Well, where did it all start from? Are there actually any gold-backed cryptos that are currently out there? And it turns out, yes, they do in fact exist, but they're nothing like what the rumor is implied for XRP. Like, they're basically just gold-backed stablecoins. For example, Tether, the company behind USDT, the biggest stablecoin, has a token called XAUT. That's actually backed by physical gold. Now, each XAUT token represents 1 troy ounce of gold stored in a vault. In fact, in 2024, Tether even launched a version of USDT called AUSDT that was pegged to the US dollar and over-collateralized with gold, kind of like a belt and suspenders approach to stability. Now, as of this year, Tether reportedly holds about 80 metric tons of gold in a Swiss vault to collateralize their gold-backed tokens, and that's around $8 billion worth of gold sitting in a vault. Now, that amount of gold is actually comparable to what some central banks hold, and guess what? The price of XAUT, Tether's gold token, is basically the price of gold, right? It was around $3,800 per token when gold spiked, because that's how much an ounce of gold was worth at the time. There's no scenario where XAUT suddenly shoots to $10,000 or $35,000 out of thin air, unless, of course, again, gold itself did that exact same thing, because it's backed by gold, right? You see how that works, right? Backing equals stability, or at least correlation with the reserve asset itself, and it's not a guaranteed moonshot. So, yeah, gold-backed crypto assets do exist, but they function essentially just like digital gold certificates, right? They give you stability and in a way kind of hold or trade gold in crypto form, with that convenience of a token. Now, they're not meant to make you rich overnight. They're meant to hold value with lower volatility, believing that you can just sprinkle in some magical gold dust on your XRP and send it to the stratosphere, at least in terms of prices, is just not grounded in reality. Now, this might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Now, by the way, if you are looking for a solid crypto exchange and you want to support the channel here, then I've got some affiliate links for 𝗶𝘱 and BitGet and a whole host of other exchanges too down in the description, right? There's a link to our website and the website has all of the most up-to-date information on the different exchanges. Now, it doesn't cost you anything extra to sign up and trade through these particular platforms, but if you do choose to use those links when signing up, it really does help support the channel here and running all of these deep dives. So thank you in advance. All right, so after digesting all of this nonsense, the crazy rumor, the community's reactions, Hamilton's reality check, and even a little detour into the gold-backed tokens, I was left with a bit of a mix of amusement and frustration, right? This is not the first time that we've seen this. On one hand, you had this kind of viral fantasy about XRP becoming the kind of gold standard and, making everyone ludicrously rich overnight. And on the other hand, you had at least the cold, hard truth of how the technology actually works. It's kind of like watching a rocket ship kind of drawn on paper versus a real rocket ship on the launch pad, right? One can ignite imaginations, but isn't actually going to go anywhere. And the other one is grounded in physics and, well, reality. But my story doesn't actually end on a bit of a downer, because during this whole saga, I actually stumbled upon something that was actually exciting, and excited me anyway in a really good way. Now, amid all of this noise on crypto Twitter, or X, or whatever we call it these days, I noticed a separate conversation bubbling up around something called Unity, and checking that out was actually a bit of a breath of fresh air after this kind of, at least wading through all that kind of rumor kind of ville, if you will. So you might be thinking, what are Unity nodes? Well, think of them as community-driven project, or a community-driven project where crypto tech meets real-world utility, very much like XRP. Now, the idea is actually pretty cool. It turns your smartphone, something like this, into a part of a global network, and you get to earn crypto for helping out. Now, more specifically, Unity nodes lets regular people like you and I use their phones to verify the telecoms network, basically to help check your cell phone networks are actually working properly. And you get rewarded for doing, at least rewarded in crypto, of your choice, I would add, for doing just that. Now, here's how I understand it. So bear with me, I just explored this out of curiosity at this stage. Now, you install the Unity app on your phone, and that app will, basically make these verification calls and pings to kind of test the local mobile network. And every time that your phone helps verify that, I don't know, let's say a cell tower is up and running, or it detects maybe even a problem, that information gets recorded on the blockchains, and they're using something called the World Mobile Chain, which is tied to the World Mobile project in the Cardano and now multi-chain ecosystem, in fact. Now, in return, you actually get to earn cryptocurrency rewards. And we're not talking about some kind of sketchy no-name token that nobody actually uses. The rewards can apparently be withdrawn in major cryptocurrencies like BTC, Ethereum, ADA, and more. It's almost like you're mining, but instead of kind of crunching pointless math puzzles, your phone is actually doing useful work by checking on real-world cell services. That's pretty wild, right? Now, to enable all of this, there's a system of Unity nodes and Unity licenses. Now, a Unity node is basically like a package, an NFT-based package actually, that you purchase, and it comes with a whole bunch of licenses. Now, I saw it's 200 licenses per node, which allows you to use, or allow up to, I should say, 200 different smartphones to actually join the network under one single node. Now, it's not cheap, don't get me wrong, at least to get one of those nodes. Last time I looked, they were priced at a few $1,000s for just one. But they're also kind of limited in number, which gives them a bit more exclusivity. But the cool part here is actually that those 200 licenses can be distributed. So you could run a bunch of them on your own phones. Let's say you've got, I don't know, maybe 5 or so old mobile devices lying around yourself. And, if you kind of have a fleet of old devices, for example, or you could lease them out, at least lease out the licenses to other people who have smartphones and want to actually participate. Now, the whole model actually ends up like a mini decentralized telecoms operation. The node owner and phone operators split the rewards for the network service fees that the telecom companies actually pay for those verification services. Now, you might be thinking, this sounds a little bit complicated, and maybe it is if it's a kind of a new concept, but what kind of stuck with me is how real it actually is, right? They're not promising you guaranteed riches or some kind of utopian future currency. They're basically just saying, help us improve global telecommunications and we'll compensate you in crypto. Now, it reminded me of the Helium network, if you've ever heard of that, where people set up wireless hotspots to earn crypto tokens by, extending their internet coverage. Now, except, of course, the Unity is using mobile devices, mobile phones, and actually cell networks. So it's the same kind of idea of kind of crowdsourcing infrastructure with crypto incentives. Now, I found all of this rather fascinating. It's kind of the development that doesn't kind of grab headlines, maybe like the $35,000 XRP does. But it probably should, because it shows how blockchain technology can tie into everyday life. And I'll admit, I was thinking, I have a bunch of old Android phones, just lying around. Maybe I could put them to work and earn a little extra Bitcoin or Cardano's ADA. Maybe XRP will get added in the future, and basically letting it act as like a mini cell tower monitor. So I did actually go ahead and purchase a Unity node just last night, and I have every intention to setting up a little something here on my desk where I run maybe 25 to 100 phones. I don't know. I haven't figured that part out just yet. But it is something that you can actually do versus just waiting on crazy kind of price miracles. Though, to be clear, I haven't purchased any extra devices just yet, just a Unity node. And I'm going to let you guys know how this kind of goes as I kind of dive into the mechanics of all of this anyway. I did find it, of course, a very refreshing idea and a good way to potentially earn some crypto on the side. But let me be very clear here. I'm not saying that Unity nodes are going to make you rich or that it's the next big thing. And this is definitely not an advertisement for it, just my personal discovery and my project that I'm going to take up. And you're going to probably see something over here in the future, right? It's like any old project, right? It has its risks and it might not pan out. But the reason that I bought it is, because, I do believe that this is where the future is going. Now, in the middle of chasing down all of this wild XRP rumor, I did stumble on this rather down-to-earth project that's got me genuinely interested. Now, it reminded me why I actually got into crypto in the first place, not for the wild speculation, but for the innovation and the new solutions. So, after this little side adventure into Unity nodes, I circled back to the XRP gold saga with a bit of a fresh perspective. It highlighted a kind of spirit in the crypto world. On one side, you've got folks chasing the almost mythological stories of overnight wealth, like the idea that some kind of financial shift will magically make XRP worth 5 digits. And on the other side, you have folks quietly actually building technology and solving problems step by step. And ironically, it's usually the latter that actually ends up moving us further forward and even helping value grow in the longer term. Now, the contrast was almost poetic, right? Here I was investigating a story about XRP supposedly being tied to the shiny gold of old, while the real shiny moments were actually happening elsewhere, in this new project and real adoption stories. It's kind of like the scene of The Wizard of Oz, right? Where Dorothy peeks behind the curtain. Sometimes the big flashy illusion isn't real at all, and the real magic is actually happening behind the curtain entirely. So, what's the takeaway from all of this then? Well, for me, it's a reminder to stay curious, but also stay kind of skeptical. By all means, keep on dreaming. Heck, I would love to investigate, have an investment of mine, do 1000x, too. But let's also not let the hype completely blind you to a lot of the realities of the world, right? If something just sounds too good to be true, like turning a few $100 into XRP, into millions of dollars overnight because of a secret kind of gold vault, it probably is, right? Just too good to be true. Instead, pay attention to the real developments, right? What are the use cases being built today? Which partnerships are happening? What are new technologies or projects like the Unity node thing, for example, that could actually enhance the ecosystem? And that's the stuff that kind of tends to create lasting value. All in all, this whole experience gave me a story to tell you and a lesson to share, right? This is not the first time that someone's come up with these crazy theories of XRP being backed by gold. The 29th of August, 2020 has always resonated in my mind because it was one of the first gold-backed theories and rabbit holes that I actually dove down into. Now, crypto is an amazing space, but it is also ripe for tall tales and anyone that will do anything for the clicks to earn a few extra dimes. Now, it's on us as investors and enthusiasts to dig deeper than just the viral tweets. Now, I'm really glad that I had the opportunity to share this one with you. Not only did I avoid obviously falling for another ridiculous rumor, hopefully I prevented some of you guys from falling for it too. I also learned about promising projects like Unity, and I might have missed otherwise. But now though, guys, if this has been useful to you, maybe entertaining, why don't you smash that like button for me and subscribe so you don't miss more stories just like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one.